What's up, guys? Darkdally here for another installation of my sniper rifle bullet drop series. I want to continue this series and get on through these sniper rifles so that we can move on to other tests. Now, if you haven't seen this series, what I'm doing is, after the initial video, and I will have a link to that down in the description as well as at the top left corner of the screen at the end of this video. The original video was a test of the bullet drop of all the sniper rifles, just stock with no parts added, at 350 meters on this wall to compare where the bullets hit. Now, since then, this will be the 6th rifle in the series of 11. There's 11 total sniper rifles in the game, and so this will be number 6. Since the original video, I've been taking each rifle, each has their own video, and modding them with different parts to see how I can reduce the bullet drop, and then compare it on screen with graphics so that during this video you will see the graphics of where all the rifles hit on here unmodded, as well as where they all hit modded in comparison to one another. Now, this helps because some of them modded climb higher, or rather I should say have less bullet drop than some of the others. For instance, the G28 hit lowest on the wall, but as we just saw in the last video, once modded, it hits higher than the L115 and the Dragunov when they're modded, even though it hit lower, and that's because it can have, more parts added to it. And so that's why this matters. So today we are testing this rifle right here, the Mark 14. I'm not going in any order. I'm just kind of going based on the requests I get, and I think I've probably, of the rifles remaining, had the most requests for the Mark 14. So that's what we're doing today. Now, the Mark 14 hit, let me go ahead, I'll just put up right now on screen the graphics. Here is where all the rifles hit stock. At 350 meters, aiming at the top of the wall, this is how far they all dropped. And you can see the Mark 14 is there right dead in the middle of most of the sniper rifles. Now, since this can take a long barrel and a rail attachment, that tells me we might be able to get some pretty good potential out of this rifle. So now that I've laid out the premise of what we're doing, if you didn't already know, and for those who did, my subscribers, I'm sorry to go through this spiel every time, but you never know. Someone may just be coming into the series and may not know exactly what we're doing. Let's go ahead and, well, first things first, let's put a mark on the wall. Okay, so let's run to 350 meters, which is at the end of this runway. While we're running down here, I'm going to lay out a couple more things just to bring everyone up to date if you haven't seen these videos. Yes, I have tried testing these kinds of things with friends, in co-op, and it doesn't, well, I wouldn't say it doesn't work, but I have noticed discrepancies as to where bullet holes show on my screen versus their screen. This comes from experience playing in co-op and trading screenshots that can appear different, so that's crossed out. Just FYI, that's why I'm doing this by myself, and I will use a drone to go up and recon where the bullet hits and then mark it on the graph. The first thing I want to do, I have this Mark 14 completely stock, and that actually reminds me of one thing I forgot to do this time. I always do, is I want to always zero the scopes with the rifle, and by that I mean make sure the rifle is accurate with all the scopes. This is something I try to do pretty quick because not every rifle is accurate with every scope, so I always want to make sure, and this is for your guys' info too. Okay, so the Mark 14 is good with the ACOG scope. I just want to go through these. We found, if you've seen these previous videos, we found, let's see, we skipped the digital G28. We know this is going to be off. We found that some of the rifles are not incompatible per se, but off-center with some of the scopes. So I always want to check, oops, and make sure. Okay, let's take this off of full auto. How about that? All right, it hits at the top of the crosshairs with the G28. It looks almost like a little higher than some of the other rifles. That's probably normal. Yeah, the G28 is not centered with any of the rifles. And, I've mentioned that in every previous video here, so I'm not going to bore you guys with that again. The G28 is just totally off in all the rifles. Let's move down to the TARS 101 and see how this is. Of course, I do all these tests with the T5XI. That's good. That one works. But I still like to do this because some of you guys have commented that you've been using, a certain scope and not realized that it was off. And some of you have commented, yeah, I was using this one scope and I noticed, oops, we already tried that one. Let's go to the Chinese scope, the POSP. Commented that I've been using this scope and I've just been adjusting for it, or, this or that. And so I just like to put this out here because when I first started this series, I did test with the G28. It appeared to give less bullet drop because it hits higher on the scope, And that caused a whole huge thing, and so this is why I do this every time now. Let's try the Russian scope out. We already know the T5XI hits dead on it, and that's why the T5XI is the scope I'm using for all these rifles. Let's try the Russian scope. And it hits good. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is make sure that we are totally stocked with the T5XI scope. Let's get to 350 meters. That's the range I'm testing at. It's a good, range. It's pretty much the maximum range you're ever really forced to engage at in the game. I want to do a sighting shot and make sure we're in line with our original stats of where this rifle dropped to. So let's see where we hit. Okay, and so here we hit right at the bottom of the fourth brick. There's a few bullet holes there because I had to do some video editing. I fired a few shots just to make sure we were accurate, and you can see the center of this shot group I fired is right here at the bottom of the fourth brick. That's counting from the bottom, the fourth brick up. That's where most of the sniper rifles were hitting, and that's right about where I've got the Mark 14 marked on the original graphic that I did. So we know we're good there. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to move the mark for the remainder of these tests since I fired a shot group. Let's put some modifications on this. Now, we know from my previous tests, we know completely and, unequivocally that the only parts that are going to change the bullet drop of this rifle are going to be a barrel and a rangefinder. We've tried everything from magazine, suppressor. Last video, we even tried underbarrel attachments, and we know that the only thing that's going to change it is the barrel length and a rangefinder. Let's go ahead and put the long barrel on. Now, we know from experience also, because, again, this is video number 6 in the series, we know now this should move us up 2 bricks. This should decrease the bullet drop by 2 bricks on that wall, which is probably about a foot or so. Okay, so there's our shot at 350 meters with the long barrel. Okay, and here we have our result. It is exactly 2 bricks higher than where we fired before. Notice that this right here, where I'm centering, is not a bullet hole. That is a chip in the wall. It's a chip in the corner of that brick. That's not our bullet hole. Our bullet hole is right there. If you're viewing this in 720p, which I'm sorry is the highest resolution I can upload, if you're viewing this in high resolution, you can see the bullet hole right here. It's right in the crack. It's at a very inconvenient spot. But we were hitting at the bottom of the fourth brick. 1, 2, 3. We were hitting at the bottom of this brick. And this long barrel moved us up exactly 2 bricks, which is what every long barrel has done thus far. We are right here. Again, disregard that. That looks like a bullet hole. It's a chip in the corner of the bricks. Okay, so that puts us up at a respectable height, actually. And because this rifle can take a real attachment too, I'm eager to see what we can get. Just as the G28, which is the lowest dropping rifle, just as it was able to outclimb some of the other rifles because it could put more mods on, we might see the same thing here with the Mark 14. A lot of people were expressing disappointment with my results in the semi-auto sniper rifles because most all the semi-auto sniper rifles ranked lower on bullet drop than some of the bolt action. But don't forget, guys, and this is one example of that, some of the semi-auto sniper rifles can take rail attachments. And that's going to help us right here. Let's put that rangefinder on. Now this could take us up because the Mark 14 stock was right in the middle of the other bullet drop shot groupings. The fact that we can add a rail attachment might just bring us way up there. Okay, let's go see where that hit. Okay, and here we see where we hit with the rangefinder and the long barrel. Notice we're right near the top of this brick, about 3/4 of the way up this brick, which is it's up there pretty good considering we're almost 1 brick higher than our shot with just the long barrel, which was at the bottom of this brick. Now, that's not quite the gain we saw from the rangefinder on the G28, so that could be an anomaly or it could be just the actual difference, but there you go. Now, I'm going to go ahead and right now on screen, I'm going to put the graphic of where all the rifles we've tested so far hit stock and where they hit in comparison to that modded. Notice on the right side of the screen we show them stock. On the left side of the screen I have all the rifles listed modded. Now when it says modded, that means with the long barrel and the rangefinder, that's as much as you can get. That's the most improvement you can get on bullet drop. And you see that the rifle we just tested, the Mark 14, is up there pretty good. that gives it gives some of these semi-auto sniper rifles, which are the ones that are available to have rail attachments, because off the top of my head, I don't think any of the bolt-action sniper rifles can have the rail attachments. That gives some of these semi-auto ones, which fell kind of lower on the stock bullet drop test, that gives them a bit of an edge. Like I said, I think I said earlier, notice how much the G28 climbed up there. Well, notice how much the Mark 14 has as well. That gives these guys a bit of an edge. Okay, and so that's the results for the Mark 14. It goes pretty good. You can really cut down a lot of that bullet drop and increase its accuracy, thus, you know, lessening the amount you're going to have to adjust the scope for bullet drop, right? And that's handy. You know, you don't have to move the scope to adjust as much, and maybe it's easier with the rangefinder and the long barrel. Now, I know, and a lot of people have requested that I include a guide on here to show what mark on the, you know, which mil dot with which rifle is at which range. Now, of course, that's going to be completely unique for each rifle, because not only do they each have their own bullet drop, or at least for the most part, but they also have different scalings of the HUD for the mil dots, and that's just ridiculous, but they do. They just do. Different rifles scale differently on the mil dots. So some people have requested that, and guys, that's just going to have to be an extra additional set of videos, because these videos are long enough as it is. But I do want to get to that. So here we've seen where the Mark 14 drops to, and I'm actually pretty impressed. You can do a lot with this rifle, and that's good because I like this one. And from what I've seen from the requests from you guys for the semi-auto rifles that you want to see, the Mark 14, I think, is the most popular. I mean, you got the SR25, the Mark 14, and the G28, and is there another one I'm forgetting? The Dragunov. But I think of those, the semi-auto that's probably requested the most is this one right here, the Mark 14. And so now we see it performs pretty damn well in terms of bullet drop, and it's accurate with all the scopes. And that's one thing we cannot say for the Dragunov. This is accurate with all the scopes. It's got good bullet drop. Of course, it has that full auto option, but with such a limited magazine, you know, I don't endorse full auto, but it is an option. And the G28 scope is workable. You just got to realize that at closer ranges, it's shooting over the crosshair, and at longer ranges, it's going to appear you have less bullet drop. So either I may do some homework on the G28 and post a G28 guide. Hey guys, that ain't a bad idea. Maybe I'll post a G28 guide for some of these semi-auto sniper rifles, because the G28 scope, I like it. It works well with some of these semi-autos, particularly this one right here, the Mark 14, because this can go full auto. It's tempting to put that G28 scope on the red dot and go full auto from time to time. Now, that said, with the red dot scope, the G28 is pretty accurate, but I might just do a special little video on something like the Mark 14 with the G28 scope, do a little combo and do a little eval of where it hits and how to use it. In fact, that might not be a bad idea. Now that I'm thinking about it more, maybe we'll do some, you know, this sniper rifle with this scope and these settings kind of guide, and do a complete thorough guide. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Like, say we took the Mark 14, we put, you know, this rifle with this scope, with these mods, and then we can put a precise exact guide to how to use that rifle with those exact settings. I think that's a good idea. I think we're going to do that in the future. All right, guys, sorry I got sidetracked. Now that we've seen the results from the Mark 14, we can move on to the remaining, I think 4 rifles. I'm going to try to knock these out in a little quicker succession, because there's so many more different kind of tests I want to do, and these videos take a decent amount of time, and I want to get to the other stuff. So I'm going to try to get the rest of this series banged out. All right, guys, so tell me what you think. I hope you like this, and let me know in the comments below what you think. And if you like the video, then why not subscribe? I'm posting videos like this every day, and I'd love to hear from you guys so I can, you know, improve this further, because, well, I want to post stuff you guys want to see, obviously. All right, guys, so thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. My name is Darkdally, and I will catch you all next time.